Welcome back, guys. So I've got a bone to pick with the Sex and the City movies. I know a lot of you had a problem with the reboot and that was not the most highly acclaimed or positively received, but what I don't think we talk about enough is how the movies kind of miss the mark. Especially Sex and the City 2 is when it really felt like a detour from the morals of the show and what it was expected to be. So this is a continuation of my Sex and the City series on YouTube, which I'm absolutely loving doing. My video about Carrie and Big went quite viral. I think you guys are just really enjoying this series, and so this felt like something I absolutely have to cover before my next deep dive. So let's get into the first movie, because whilst it had its flaws and its problems, it wasn't as bad, but there was still a lot of issues in the first movie that I noticed, and a lot of points where it was very underdeveloped and could have gone deeper into certain topics. So it's taking place a few years after the events of the television series. So we have Carrie and Mr. Big, who are now in a committed relationship, and they're actually in a good place. I hate these two. I want them both to die. I just cannot stand either of them individually or together, like genuinely. But they're actually really excited to get married. However, this is more something that Carrie proposes to Big. Literally, like, he wasn't planning this at all. It just happened. It was the most anticlimactic proposal ever. He was sort of like, oh wait, did you want to get married? And she's like, well, I don't know, do you want to get married? And then he's like, oh, I guess we're engaged now. And it was just so, like, zero fucks were given, zero effort was put into it. But, you know, apparently they're going to be engaged, and again it was pushed forward, particularly because they were looking at apartments together and she just couldn't afford a certain apartment, and he was like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And this started to make her feel insecure, because obviously she wants to be independent and she also wants him to take her seriously, and she's concerned that she would have no legal rights to the home if they separate, which is kind of what kickstarts the whole wedding conversation, which I think is a very unsexy way to do it. But anyway, originally they're planning to have more of a low-key wedding until it gets leaked. And anyway, Carrie's such an attention seeker. You cannot tell me she would ever elope or have a low-key wedding. She wants to be the star of the show, so obviously she's planning this huge wedding and she's getting really carried away with the arrangements, even though it's not really what Big had wanted. There's nothing wrong with wanting a big wedding. I love the idea of a big wedding. I just think it's very in line with Carrie's personality, because she is such an attention seeker and she loves the drama. So I couldn't imagine her wanting to be low-key about it, right? Carrie's Vogue editor invites her to be featured in the magazine's annual age issue in bridal couture, as at 40 she's considered like the oldest possible age to be wearing a bridal gown, which I think is just ridiculous. Even if it's a joke or not, it's just dumb. But anyway, she poses in numerous couture gowns, including one by Vivienne Westwood, which she's going to wear to the actual wedding. As fun as the whole fashion montages are, it doesn't really add anything to the plot. It means nothing. You could remove those scenes or add them. It really wouldn't contribute, but they're fun to watch. So we're gonna give it a pass. I love that girly stuff. But fun fact, by the way, Vivienne Westwood created a whole new gown for Carrie to wear for this movie, under the impression that Carrie and Big would be getting married. And apparently she was really shocked and actually walked out of the movie premiere with nothing nice to say, because she was so mad when she watched it. And she was shocked, obviously, because Carrie doesn't go ahead with the wedding with Big. He walks out on her and she never ends up actually getting married in the dress. So that's super awkward. But Carrie is really at the forefront of the plot of this movie. The other girls' storylines are not half as interesting or well developed. I would say she is at the front row seat here, and I would say that Samantha's storylines are also quite thoughtful and, you know, well developed. She's given a lot of screen time, but to me the other two, especially Charlotte, their storylines seem, well, I know, I guess Miranda's is okay, but it involves Steve and I hate Steve. But Charlotte really takes the back seat, in my opinion, in this first movie. I feel like they could have given her more to do, because Carrie and Big just dominates everything. But it's not bad. Like, they do all have their own things going on, and even Charlotte has her moments because she's such a good friend. She has like 2 moments which are really great, where she stands up for Carrie at the altar when she's annoyed at Big and she tells Big to get away from Carrie. I just love it. And even later when she sees Big and tells him she rues the day he was ever born. So she does have like some really funny and memorable moments. Talking about Charlotte, she's actually married Harry, and the two have adopted a Chinese girl named Lily. And Miranda has settled down in Brooklyn with Steve to raise their son Brady together. And Samantha has moved to Los Angeles to be close to Smith, but she returns to New York as much as possible to spend time with her friends Carrie, Charlotte, and Miranda. Now, again, this is why I prefer the first movie, because it's more thoughtful all around. Because the thing about, what's her name? Samantha, I love Samantha, is that she was never expecting herself to be in this housewife type role or for a man to define her worth. This is why I have always argued she's the most confident out of all the women. Not nearly like the most confident person ever, but she has the strongest sense of identity, because she isn't embarrassed to admit that like being a wife is not her dream, you know, being someone's partner is not her dream. And as much as she loves Smith, now she's supported his career, he's this big movie star, and so he's sleeping, working out, and it's boring because that's all he's got time for, and so she has to mold herself to his schedule, and she starts to feel very, very unsatisfied with this lifestyle because she's not built for monogamy. It's not for her. Like, she's literally bored. She's trying so hard to like support him, but it's hard for her. It's really hard for her. At one point she like covers herself in sushi and lies there naked to try and seduce him for the special occasion. I think it's Valentine's Day or something. And he was working, so he arrives a bit late, and she's so bummed because it made her feel insecure, and it made her realize like, oh, I never thought I'd be this girl that's like lying around at home waiting for her partner to come back and being sad when he cancels on plans, but I'm that girl now. And so it's really hard for her because they are in a healthy relationship. He's good to her, he's not done anything wrong, but that doesn't mean that she's satisfied just because he's a good guy. And you can see that she's really starting to question this relationship basically, and if this is what she truly, truly wants. She's also struggling with her lust for her neighbor Dante, because she can see him through the window. He's always having sex with someone and he seems just really hot to her, and she starts having these really strong fantasies about basically being with him because she's not satisfied in her relationship. As much as I understand that Samantha's always been this way and it's true to character, it does make me sad because I felt like her and Smith were the strongest couple out of all of them. I'm not saying it was wrong for them to break up, but I was personally very, very disappointed by it when she eventually decides to end things with him and says, I love you, but I love me more. It's beautiful and it's a good message to send that you shouldn't be male defined. And she obviously keeps the ring, so she wants to keep a part of him close to her, and she's grateful for everything that he's taught her. She's grateful for having him in her life, and his love has permanently changed her. It's not like they're on bad terms. I still felt like it was a real shame that so many toxic relationships are romanticized in this show, and you finally get a good relationship and then it doesn't work out, you know? And okay, he's working long hours, but then get busy. Like, if you're annoyed that he's working a lot, do more then. Like, it doesn't mean you need to like give up on the relationship or feel annoyed that you need him. And FYI, there's nothing wrong with feeling like you need someone. Humans are wired for connection. Anyway, if we go back to Carrie and Big, because they're the main part of this movie, I would argue, Carrie is beginning to really double down on the wedding, which increases Mr. Big's anxiety because he's been divorced twice. And I don't know why, but we never see him with his male friends in this movie. They're just not present. Like, it's so weird how isolated Big always seems in this movie. Like, there's no one there celebrating with him, no one putting pressure on him to marry Carrie. He's just by himself in a lot of the scenes. But what really bothers him is literally the night before the wedding. Miranda makes this comment to him about how weddings suck or never get married when she's in a bad mood, and Big, as the avoidant attachment style, uses that as an opportunity to escape and walk out on Carrie. And he calls her the night before the wedding sounding really uncertain. Obviously this is a very public wedding, so it's really embarrassing if it doesn't work out. And Carrie, rather than really wanting to know, it's like she doesn't want to know, and she puts her head in the sand like she always does because she doesn't want to see the reality of who she's dating. And she's just like, don't worry, I'll see you tomorrow, okay? And she just basically shuts it down, but she knows something's wrong because he doesn't sound enthusiastic about this wedding tomorrow. But anyway, the girls are all getting ready, and through the morning of, that's when he decides he wants to quit, which is, by the way, no, she'll be busy. She's obviously not going to be checking her phone or necessarily hearing it ring. You can't just walk out on someone on the day of the wedding. It's insanely disrespectful. But anyway, he wants to walk out, but she doesn't know. Like, she doesn't get the call saying that, so she's just rushing around, worried she's going to be a bit late. And as much as I despise Carrie for a lot of the show, every time she's with Big, he makes her 100 times worse. I felt so bad for her that she's genuinely so excited to get married, and now he's like publicly humiliated her. And in his typical avoidant attachment style, as he's driving off, he changes his mind and decides he'll come back, but by that point she's already noticed that he hasn't shown up, so he can't like hide it or pretend he had second thoughts, like pretend to hide it. Like he can't pretend, like it was so obvious he'd left her, like he was way too late. So she's furious. She starts hitting him with her bouquet, which we love. And by the way, thoughts on her dress? I love the dress. I hate the headpiece. I think it's tacky, it's too much, and the dress was already such a statement. It could have spoken for itself, and instead she just looks like a big peacock. But anyway, she is so mad at him. She's so humiliated, and she's an absolute mess. She's just lying around, can't eat, can't think, can't take care of herself because she's just so traumatized. I don't know why she's surprised. Again, this is actually very in character and honest of him, like he's always been, but it doesn't matter. She is personally very victimized by this because she really thought that this time it would be okay, and they had been planning a wedding for a long time. So it shouldn't matter that he was embarrassed or he didn't want the attention of a big wedding or a scandal, because he's just created a scandal there, like literally right on his own.
Oh, wait.
Miranda tells Charlotte she feels really guilty because she may have planted concerns in Big's head about the marriage, but Charlotte tells her, don't even bother telling Carrie because you haven't done anything wrong, and Big was always having doubts right from the beginning, so it's literally not your fault, which is the correct advice. She has nothing to feel guilty for. She is not responsible for his poor decision making because of a side comment she made when she was in a bad mood. Like, he has autonomy over his decisions, and he shouldn't be so easily swayed that his opinions are changed by other people. Like, I'm sorry, it had nothing to do with her. But the girls decide to basically go with Carrie on her Mexican honeymoon because they want to help support her. So they want to, you know, de-stress, and like they're all enjoying it, but she's just lying in bed, being depressed. Charlotte makes a comment about not being able to like drink the water or eat the food, which I thought was a bit of a dumb comment to make about Mexico, and slightly, yeah, just culturally insensitive, and something that is just like a stereotype that didn't need to be further reinforced, especially because it held no meaning. Charlotte does that a lot, where she says stuff that's just outdated and plain rude, but it doesn't really, you don't really get anything out of it. She's just being obnoxious. Like when she called Steve working class, like it really didn't add anything to the plot. It was just rude. She does that sometimes. But the really sweet scene that I like is when Samantha feeds Carrie to try and encourage her to eat something and looks after her. I thought that was such a sweet Samantha moment, and there are some really good moments of female solidarity in this film, which, by the way, is what people watched the original Sex and the City movie for in the first place. Before anything got ruined, before it was made into something it wasn't supposed to be, the original movie was about female solidarity. It was about supporting each other, and that's the moment that everybody likes. Like even earlier in the movie, Miranda is depressed because she thinks she'll be spending like New Year's Eve alone, and she tries to dissuade Carrie from coming to see her, and she's like, oh no, it's fine, but Carrie can tell something's wrong and that Miranda needs her. So despite Miranda saying it's fine, don't worry about me, she goes and she gets a taxi. And when she can't get a taxi, she's going through the snow in terrible weather conditions, determined to get to Miranda no matter what. To me, that was such a beautiful moment. It literally reminded me of the scene in Bridget Jones where she's running through this sleety, snowy street to chase after Mark Darcy in her underwear. Like, it's giving rom-com moment, and I absolutely loved it. And she just wanted to be there to support her friend, and those are the parts of the show that I really enjoy. When you look at Miranda's storylines, they're pretty weak because it involves Steve, and Steve is the bane of my existence. But the reason why she's spending New Year's Eve alone is because her and Steve's relationship had really declined. They weren't making time for each other, and she wasn't making time for him or prioritizing him, because why should she? She's burnt out and exhausted. She's too exhausted to have sex with him because, again, he depletes her and he's a leech and he's a parasite and he's robbing her of her resources. So of course she doesn't have time, and so he punishes her for it by cheating on her. And even though he like regrets it immediately, the damage is done, and so she's given a whole lot of shit for it about the fact that she doesn't want to give him a second chance, but she truly like has no interest in talking about it further. She just wants to leave him, but it's difficult, you know, because they have a child together. The girls have a great holiday and finally Carrie starts to perk up after a few days of being on the trip. She eventually like gets a grip, and she's finding it really hard that she's not talking to Big anymore, but at the same time it feels like it's truly over now and there's nothing else to say. So they return to New York City after this little vacay, and Carrie hires an assistant, Louise, who helps Carrie to kind of rejoin the world and organize some stuff for her. This to me was truly an example of a character who's created purely for tokenism. Even the way they describe like the process of casting, I think her name's Jennifer Hudson. They're like, oh, you know, we already had 4 jewels and we needed a 5th jewel, so you know, and it was time, it was really important. Like it was a weird way to describe the casting process, especially because she doesn't do anything in this movie. She has no purpose other than the fact that she wants to find love, and she's not integrated at all with Carrie's friends. We just see her in like a vacuum with Carrie one-on-one, so we have no idea who this girl is or what her background's like, aside from the fact that she wants to find love, which she achieves. So it's just a really poorly written and unnecessary character all around, and I wish they'd done more with her because she seems really sweet. Carrie like hasn't looked at any of Big's emails because she just wants to cut all contact. Then Miranda confesses to Carrie what she told Big about how it's not a good idea to get married, which again is a non-issue. Carrie gets so mad at her. She's like, oh, you ruined my wedding, which is ridiculous. It was such an overreaction on Carrie's part to blame Miranda for Big's actions. Like, okay. As a side note, Charlotte gets pregnant, which she's delighted about because she had so many like fertility issues in the original show. But later Miranda visits Carrie and asks please for forgiveness for what she did. And Carrie says that she should consider forgiving Steve, which I think is such an overstep. She is not obligated to forgive her crusty ex-husband, especially because Steve never seemed sorry for hurting Miranda. He seemed sorry for the fact that he wasn't getting his needs met in the relationship, and he seems more so annoyed that he couldn't get what he wanted from her, and he just couldn't keep his dick in his pants apparently. Like he couldn't just talk it out, he just had to go and cheat. And a lot of it, rather than just apologizing and taking responsibility at the time, was down to projection. Like, oh, it's just that you were never spending any time with me, you were never home, you were always working, so I was just so depressed. So again, it's almost blaming her by saying, oh, because you weren't sexy enough, you weren't in your feminine energy enough, whatever that even means, you weren't available enough, therefore like I had to cheat on you. So again, like she has no incentive to forgive him, but they do like couples counseling, and again in this session he's basically not taking responsibility and being like, oh well, I was hurt too, and victimizes himself. So for me, it really tainted any possibility of them reuniting, them and the Brooklyn Bridge. Like, yes, I get in concept, in theory, this is supposed to be a really heartwarming, beautiful scene, but when someone has behaved like that and disrespected you like that, I don't care how cute the scene is. Like, he's just an asshole. So later, Charlotte gives birth because she encounters Big at a restaurant and literally gets so angry that her water breaks, which I find really funny. So he takes her to the hospital. It's framed as this amazing gesture that he took her to the hospital, which is so funny to me because that's so bare minimum that he takes a woman in labor to the hospital. Like, we literally praise these mediocre ass men for doing absolutely nothing, like bare minimum normal human behavior. But anyway, when Carrie gets home, she does find that Louise had hidden the emails that Big had sent her, and she'd always talked about like writing love letters and poetry and this kind of thing. So Mr. Big, rather than saying what he wanted to say for himself and coming up with his own thing, he just basically copy pasted a compilation of different like love letters and poems and romantic things that he'd found in books or on the internet, which I think is so funny that she's so touched by this, because all I was thinking is, oh, so he didn't actually have anything unique to say about her specifically because he couldn't think of anything to say. Like, he's that bad at expressing his emotions. Like, why would you romanticize that? It's like not cute. But then in the final message, Big had actually said something of his own, but it was like one line basically saying, I love you forever and I'm sorry, or something like that. So they reunite. This was all very rushed. This felt like it happened in the space of about 5 minutes, but she goes to the penthouse to collect her shoes, and then she sees Big there and they reunite. So they reconcile and they marry alone in a simple wedding in New York City Hall, and all her friends turn up to surprise her, basically arranged by Big. And they later toast. I swear he's like checking out Charlotte in this scene at the after dinner party thing. Like, I swear he's checking out like sharing a flirty look with Charlotte. It's so weird, but anyway, or is it Samantha? I don't know. He gives someone a weird look. Of course he does, right? But again, I think this is framed as this romantic thing, but A, I can't stand these two, so I don't care. And B, that's just him getting what he wants, which is hiding her and keeping it as low-key as possible so it doesn't get in the papers, because he's ashamed of her. Like, he doesn't want to shout it from the rooftops because he doesn't, in a way, want anyone to know. And for me, it's like, she wanted a big wedding and now apparently she can't have that, so she has to like change herself and sort of apologize in a way by like toning herself down and having the quiet wedding. But I'm annoyed she couldn't get the big flashy wedding that she was excited about in the first place, and she spent like months and months planning, including the honeymoon, by the way, which he ruined for her. So no, this literally isn't romantic. But then the girls later toast their cosmopolitans to congratulating Samantha on her 50th birthday and the next 50. So overall, it was cute. It definitely had some good moments. The men ruined it for me, but I do think there were some really strong scenes there of female friendship, and I love the little honeymoon they took together. So there were definitely the strong parts there very much present, and you could taste that it was basically very similar to the original show, even though it missed the mark a bit. But Sex and the City 2 is when everything goes terribly downhill, and it was just a sign of what was to come with the reboot. So let's get into it, and I'm gonna explain to you guys why. So Carrie, Samantha, Charlotte, and Miranda attend Stanford and Anthony's wedding, and they really mention a lot like, is this a gay wedding? It's a gay wedding. Like, it's a bit strange, but it's a gay wedding. Like, okay, we get it. So they go there, and basically 3 of the 4 women are now married except Samantha, who is 52 and trying to retain, maybe not retain is the wrong word, but maintain her libido as she enters menopause, because she's got this weird paranoia, like, oh, am I entering menopause? Does this mean I'm entering menopause? Like, you know, I'm past 50 now, I'm 52, and really freaking out about it because she sees some guys like at the wedding and she's not as aroused by looking at them as she thought she would be. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, this means I'm going into menopause. To me, it's so weird. Calm down. Okay, you looked at some men and you were immediately like freaking out and aroused. Like, okay, that doesn't mean you're going through menopause. Let's calm down. But I just feel like this show, their like hatred of Samantha starts to come in with how they treat her in this second movie. It's like every single scene was constructed in a way to embarrass her or degrade her. And you'll see later as I explain. But she's really worried about that because she's like, oh, this is who I am, as being this sexy person having sex, and what if I don't want to do that anymore because I'm going through menopause and I'm getting old. This annoyed me because it could have been an opportunity to really develop into how women's bodies change as they age and be really kind about it and really like soft about it, but instead it was just played for laughs. And I had the exact same issue with like later in the show when Carrie's aware that Mr. Big wants to stay home and watch a lot of TV, and she's annoyed that he's not like immediately wanting to rip her clothes off. And she's walking around in her bra, obviously trying to like make him notice her, and he is watching TV and it bothers her because she doesn't feel desired, and she's talking a lot about worrying about the spark leaving. And this could have been a really great opportunity to go further into, again, aging, your relationship, you know, 30 years of marriage in, 20 years of marriage in, what that's like, and kind of being really exciting and showing that it can be great. And you know, it could have been inspiring, and instead it was just very surface level. Like, we didn't really scratch the surface of, even if there was a moral message here, let's say there was, what was it actually trying to say? I still don't know. But this is also the movie where the girls go to Abu Dhabi, because this is a whole thing around them going there and getting dressed up. We have a lot of like fashion montages of them on the beach, not on the beach, them like in the desert, but it's not really saying anything. Again, like those scenes could be literally cut. But back in New York, Miranda quits her job after her firm's new managing partner disrespects her once too often and makes a comment she just doesn't like. And her whole arc in this is so pointless because that's how it starts, and it ends with, oh, you know, she can love her job but once she's in an environment where she's respected. It's like, we knew that. This isn't like new information. This isn't groundbreaking news, you know what I mean? I just feel like she does absolutely nothing. But anyway, Charlotte has 2 children, Lily and Rose, who are a handful. They're really intense. Motherhood isn't all it's cracked up to be. Again, this could have been something that was really developed deeper around when motherhood becomes your sole identity, or how stressful it is when you feel like you have to do everything and manage the house. And again, it just barely skimmed the surface, but she's worried that her husband Harry is attracted to their Irish nanny Erin more than her. Like, as a fellow big busted girl, I did not like at all the portrayal of the nanny and the way that they're just like, look at her huge bouncing tits, like look at her tits, oh my god, like she doesn't even wear a bra and she bounces up and down, and like it was just really uncomfortable. I also hated the way that when she arrives, everyone's just like, and just staring like at her boobs and being so weird about it and being like, oh, like you can't trust your husband. If I had a nanny that looked like that, like it's just so creepy. And then she's there looking after the kids and just being playful, and all three of the husbands, Harry, Big, and the other one, Steve, are watching her for so long as if they just can't control themselves and just like drooling over her. Keeping in mind, all of these guys are married, and it seems so out of character for Harry, who'd always been very sort of loyal to Charlotte, that he would also be partaking in that. It just made all of them seem absolutely disgusting, and the film laughs at it and brushes it off as if this is just normal men behavior and like it's totally not a big deal. And I was like, ew, like this actually is a big deal, and this isn't like funny that they're openly gawking at her with no self-control. I also think that it is comical how she's Irish and they just play this obscene, like in your face Irish music every time she appears on screen. It is so ridiculous to me. Like, okay, we get it. But rather than Charlotte communicating about this or just getting a new nanny, she's just freaking out all the time and just paranoid that her husband must be cheating on her with the nanny. Carrie's been married to Mr. Big for a while now, so they've settled down into their routine, and she wants to go out often to dinner parties and events, whereas he often wants to stay in and relax and watch TV. And at the start of the show, it genuinely seemed like he was just hiding her and he was ashamed of her, and I stand by that. But at this point in their marriage, and considering he's getting older, I don't think it was just about wanting to not be seen with her. I genuinely think that he was tired, old, well, old, not old, but older, and at that age where he just wanted that quiet life, he wanted to sit and watch TV. It's like, you picked a guy who was older than you, and then you get pissed when he behaves like an older man, aka wanting to stay in, have a quiet night, and not go out to a crazy party. Like, you're not 15 anymore. Like, maybe he doesn't want to be out till midnight partying it up at some dumb event. Maybe he just wants to stay in, but she's reading into it as like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be that boring couple. I don't want to be like everyone else. Like, I want us to keep the spark. And like, she thinks it's such a problem basically that he doesn't want to go out all the time. To me, it felt like she'd spent so much time chasing Mr. Big and the idea of him that when she actually got him, she wasn't satisfied anymore. She wasn't happy once she'd secured him in this marriage. Because honestly, if she wanted to stay in too and just chill and have a quiet evening, it would have been fine. They could have had a nice time. The first night they did it, they had an amazing time. They loved watching this movie. It was really romantic. They cuddled. And so he wants to do it again the next week. And she's like, oh, but we already did that. Like, it's too much. And ironically, I think them just getting along was weird for her. She wasn't used to it, and she wanted to almost stir up another drama and create one when there wasn't necessarily one. And what makes it worse is the one time they do go out, because she drags him out to an event, he just is openly flirting with this woman who's a brunette, of course, and it just makes her even more insecure, because when they do go out, he's not behaving like a married man, he's behaving like someone that's single. I definitely think she was very whiny in this movie though, despite him being his usual creepy, uncommitted self, because she got what she tried so hard to get, what she was always saying she wanted, and then when she gets it, she always wants the other thing. And she does this a lot. Like, she's saying, I want someone to just stand still with me. Okay, he's being still now. He's watching a movie and you're not satisfied with it. Then you go out and you're not happy when you're out and you want to go home again. For their anniversary, Carrie gives Big an engraved vintage Rolex, which is really thoughtful, and he gives her a new TV as a gift. I think this is a terrible gift. He should have gotten her skincare, shoes, maybe some beautiful scented perfume, something that he knows that she will absolutely like as a fashion girly. Getting her a TV seemed more like a present for him than for her. Carrie spends 2 really intense days at her old apartment to write. It was just meant to be a one-off thing. And then Big's like, oh, well, why don't we do that more often then, since we need like time off sometimes. He just said it all. He basically has said, I don't really like you that much and I do want time off from you and I want space. Like, for me, if my partner said that, I would be low-key insulted, because you're basically saying let's schedule in time apart. Like, I'm all for, but if you want time apart, go out for a walk, go out for dinner with your friends, go on a camping trip, go for a girls' weekend somewhere. There's no need to like schedule in 2 days a week where you don't live together. I just think that's weird. Then what's the point of being married or live together? But this is just a reflection again of his mindset, which is that he quite enjoyed the space from her. I don't blame him. She's annoying. She's literally annoying. I would want space from her too. But I think the reason why he said this, to be fair, Mr. Big, I cannot believe I'm justifying Mr. Big right now. This will be very, very rare in the Serena Skyboard channel, but in his defense, which pains me to say it, she was constantly complaining that they wanted to do different things and she was a socialite and she was constantly being annoyed at him for wanting to sit on the couch and watch TV. So I think in his mind, he was suggesting it because he was like, you know, we have very different hobbies. So this gives us 2 days where I can watch TV and you won't be like mad at me for doing what I want to do. And then I won't need to annoy you and you can go and do what you want to do. But Charlotte is the only one to really question this for Carrie and say, are you okay with this? Do you really want to do this? And Carrie's pretending it's fine and getting really mean at Charlotte whenever she brings it up. But that's because Charlotte's a real one and she wants to be super honest with Carrie and tell her like it is, which is that she can see that Carrie doesn't like feeling as if her husband wants space from her. And this is something that could be resolved through a painful but very much needed open conversation. As Samantha's devising a PR campaign, they get an all expenses trip paid to Abu Dhabi, and Miranda, as she doesn't have a job for the first time in her life, is actually excited to go and enjoy a holiday without any obligations or responsibilities or a whiny man-child husband to take care of. When they enter, Samantha's hormones are confiscated because she's not allowed to bring them in, and she's so worried this is going to increase her inevitable sink into menopause. On a visit to a market, Carrie runs into her former lover Aiden and he invites her to dinner. She is cheating. She is cheating because she's flirting with him and she agrees to dinner. That's cheating. He's an ex. There's nothing else to say. You should not be having dinner with someone you still have a little romantic spark with, especially because he very much is hitting on her and she knows it, so she knows what she's agreeing to with dinner. And she decides to go on a dinner anyway, even though she knows it's the wrong thing to do. And Charlotte is the only one to say, this isn't a good idea, you're playing with fire. And Carrie gives her the nastiest retort ever because she doesn't want to hear it. So she goes on this dinner and what happens is exactly what we all knew would happen, which is that they're getting too flirty and Aiden kisses her. And then she's shocked and hurt by a situation that she created and immediately regrets it, but it's too late. It's literally too late. When she calls Mr. Big to tell him what she did, he's very silent and then tells her he's got to go work and he's busy, and he hangs up and obviously has just completely checked out. Samantha goes on a date with a Danish architect and gets in trouble because she's basically fondling him and kissing him and you're not allowed to do that in public, so they try and give her a criminal record. Again, like, she's so devastated that she's not allowed to be sexual or anything because it's not part of the culture, and she's so pissed at the thought of not being able to have sex for a week or two. This to me is when Samantha's character was really assassinated and they were making her a laughing stock. Now I understand why the actress didn't come back for the reboot, because it's so evident they were just putting her through as much weird and embarrassing stuff in this movie as possible. Like when she's in the street and like condoms fall out of her bag, everyone stares and she's like, yeah, I have sex, guys, this is what I do, what's the big deal, and starts yelling at everyone. It just felt like they were trying to make her do such crazy stuff to embarrass her. She had no dignity, you know what I mean? It was just cringy and weird, and apparently the actress actually objected to it because she thought it was weird too. Then I think she was threatened with lawsuits and it led to her whole fallout with Sarah Jessica Parker. I really feel like they were trying to make Samantha look bad because she was always the most confident out of all the women. She was always very age positive, very sex positive, not someone who's terrified of aging and obsessed with cosmetic procedures. When Carrie returns home from their little vacation, she finds that Mr. Big isn't back and he's not at home, so she wonders if he's just gone for a walk or what's going on. And she waits at home after a while, and then he eventually turns up. He's come back with a big black diamond engagement ring, saying he really needs to remind her that basically she's married and to not forget that, and that they need to show up for each other. When Carrie asks why a black diamond, he says it's because she's not like anyone else, echoing Aiden's previous comment. It was surprising to me how nonchalant he seemed. Like he'd just gone for a really long walk and then gone to buy her a ring, and he was like, it's okay, like just remember you're a married woman basically and we'll be fine. Like I thought that was really funny. I was like, oh, so okay. And she's like, oh really? Like it was so lame. It was so lame. But anyway, jeez. Charlotte discovers that her nanny Erin is a lesbian and that she likes other hot nannies, so basically nothing to worry about, no threat to her marriage. It's interesting because she was so in her head the whole movie, trying to frantically cool Harry even when on vacation because she doesn't trust him, so worried. The way they solve this problem is by having the nanny be gay, as opposed to Harry just reassuring her and communicating with her and telling her, don't worry. It was like saying the only way that he could possibly not cheat with this hot nanny is if she was gay. So like, what if she was straight then? Would he cheat? Like, how about we just send the message instead that she could be straight and it's fine because he would know how to maintain boundaries and actually like restrain himself around her. Anyway, I didn't love that. The film ends with Miranda finding a new job where she actually feels respected and appreciated because she realizes that actually she doesn't like not working. And she feels good working, which we already knew this about her, by the way. Samantha remains unchanged, even having sex with this Danish guy like on the beach in the Hamptons somewhere once she's escaped her holiday, and she's just so happy to be going back to what she does best. Stefan Farber of The Hollywood Reporter called it blatantly anti-Muslim. The Guardian described the trailers as borderline racist. This movie definitely, like, I'm not even gonna say it didn't age well because it was quite recent it came out and yet it felt so aged. It was definitely a woman-hating film vibe. It was basically, oh my gosh, menopause is bad. You need to stay young forever. I felt like Carrie was so entitled. Miranda's just yet again not being appreciated by her husband and just being forced to do everything in a sense, which is part of the reason why she quits, is because she's just so fed up of being, you know, used like this. The whole nanny edition, I just like hated that entire subplot. I thought it was so weird and pointless. And I don't think this film was a good idea because it really felt like a deviation and not very progressive in a lot of ways. I was like, who made this when I was watching it? Like, whose idea was this? But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe because in a week or two, depending on how long it takes for me to get it together, we're doing the ultimate Carrie and Big deep dive. Actually, maybe a few weeks. It depends how long it takes to edit. It may take ages to edit. It's gonna be huge. I'm so excited. I love you guys and I'll see you for the next one.